Good evening, I'm Fana Sheikh and you're tuning into AWANI tonight. Pahang and Perlis have dissolved their state legislative assemblies. Meanwhile, PM says that G15 will proceed even if several states do not dissolve their respective legislative assemblies. More on that coming up. The 15th general election will proceed even if several states decide not to dissolve their respective legislative assemblies, says Prime Minister Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri Yaakob. He says this is because every state has the right to dissolve its state assembly at any time. Ismail said holding national and state polls separate would only inconvenience the people who will have to come out to cast their votes twice. He strongly recommended for the dissolution of state assemblies and parliament to be done simultaneously. However, 6 states have decided not to follow suit. PAS previously announced it would not dissolve its state legislative assemblies in Kedah, Kelantan and Terengganu. Pakatan Harapan also made the same decision for Selangor and Negeri Sembilan, but the dissolution of the Penang State Assembly is still being discussed. The Pahang and Perlis legislative assemblies have been dissolved to make way for state elections to be held alongside GE15. Both the region of Pahang and Raja of Perlis consented to the dissolution of the state assemblies today.
Pahang Menteri Besar Datuk Seri Wan Rosdi Wan Ismail says October 14th was chosen to allow for the state's 2023 budget to be tabled and debated, then passed so it could be implemented next year.
Ketetapan untuk membubarkan Dewan Negeri Pahang ke-14 dan seterusnya menyertai pilihan raya umum ke-15 bersama-sama dengan Kerajaan Persekutuan diambil bersandarkan kepada beberapa keperluan. Pertama, untuk mengelakkan proses dan musim pilihan raya yang berulang-ulang dalam tempoh yang singkat. Ini kerana kurang setahun dari sekarang penggal ini akan berakhir dan pilihan raya mesti diadakan.
He added this would help save costs and allow for smoother administrative business with the next federal government.
Instead of the Perikatan Nasional logo, PAS has chosen to use its own party logo when contesting in Kelantan, Terengganu and Kedah this coming elections. As for the party's candidates in other states, PAS President Tan Sri Abdul Hadi Awang says it will be up to them to decide between the party or PN symbol.
There have been previous suggestions for the coalition to contest under the PAS logo due to reasons that the PN symbol is not as well known among its supporters. Yesterday, the party announced it will strengthen cooperation with PN to face GE15 together. Following this, UMNO President Datuk Seri Ahmad Zahid Hamidi confirmed that UMNO would go solo in the polls under Barisan Nasional. Despite vowing to strengthen ties with PN, PAS has not entirely closed the door to cooperate with UMNO. Professor of Asian Studies James Chin discusses the political future of PAS amid its dilemma of choosing to side with either UMNO or Bersatu.
If they had their way, they want these 3 Malay parties to still come together, what they call the Ummah, Malay/Islamic Solidarity. They want this group to carry forward. But that is no longer a political option. So whatever PAS does, PAS is desperate. They just want to be part of the next government. So they've been trying very hard to play both sides. But it is my understanding that both Bersatu and UMNO have given them an ultimatum. So they have to decide. Because on nomination day, you will see, in terms of where PAS candidate stands, you will know roughly where PAS real loyalty lies.
G15 is set to take place after the country has seen 3 different governments in 3 years. James Chin breaks down the changes in the political landscape since 2018 and where battle lines are being drawn.
If you look at GE14, it was basically 2 big blocks, Pakatan Harapan versus Barisan Nasional. Now, basically, there are 3 separate blocks. The 2 big blocks are still there, Barisan Nasional and Pakatan Harapan. But you got Perikatan Nasional broke away plus a lot of new parties like PBM, Warisan coming to Peninsula Malaysia. So the landscape has changed. But the important thing to remember is that the structural part of the elections is still the same. So when I talk about the structural constraints, basically I'm talking about the fact that the two big blocks in the Malaysian electoral system that you have to win in order to form government is, of course, the rural Malay bloc. That accounts for 80, 90 seats, in the peninsula, and the Sabah Sarawak bloc, which is 57 seats. So these are the two big blocks. You have to win a majority of these two big blocks in order to form the government. That has not changed.
Given current political divisions in the country, can any one party emerge as a clear winner in GE15? James Chin shares his insights.
So if you look at Malaysia's political history before 2018, it is quite obvious that UMNO was the Malay dominant party in the Malay areas. That pattern was broken in 2018, primarily by Mahathir. So it was broken into three parts. I'm not talking about the Malay electorate as a whole. I'm just talking about the rural Malay electorates. So it's broken roughly 1/3 UMNO, 1/3 Bersatu under Mahathir, and 1/3 under PAS. So that's the reason why PAS ended up with a state government Kedah. So you can see that this pattern, in my view, will not be repeated. You will see one dominant party coming out of the Malay electorate. So that dominant party has to negotiate with the MPs from Sabah and Sarawak or the parties in Sabah and Sarawak to form a solid government. So it is my guess that we will have, well, it's not a guess, it is my prediction that we will have a very stable government after GE15. The important thing to note is that Sabah and Sarawak are not that interested in federal politics or national politics, but they just want to be part of the government to extract maximum money for development purposes and also to gain maximum autonomy under MA63. But in terms of my prediction for the outcome of Sabah and Sarawak, I expect the vote in Sabah to be split. Part of it is because they have two big blocks and I don't see any one of the bloc dominating the other side. But in Sarawak, the situation is completely different. I suspect GPS, the current ruling coalition in Sarawak, will do very well in these upcoming general elections. In fact, I would argue that they might gain additional seats compared to their last performance in 2018.
We will go for a quick break. Stay tuned.
Rebut peluang menangi hadiah bernilai RM100,000 dalam peraduan Marigold sahut cabaran realisasi impian. Sertainya sekarang.
Alami kehebatan dunia Unified TV dengan lebih 70 saluran premium dan 16 aplikasi penstreaman. Tonton dan nikmati rancangan kanak-kanak, liputan sukan, drama Korea dan filem terkini bila-bila masa di mana jua. Dapatkan Unify hari ini. Unify.
Welcome back. 7 out of 10 senior citizens worldwide experience complications from the flu, according to the WHO. Many from this group also die from complications due to virus infections, such as influenza. Geriatrician Dr. Nordiana Nordin discusses common flu complications among the elderly as she advocates for vaccination and awareness.
So namely flu pneumonia, inflammation from the heart, inflammation of the heart, as well as sepsis. So sepsis is when you get bacteremia, infection throughout the body, which goes into the bloodstream. In fact, those in the geriatric population above 65 years old is up to 85% die from flu-related death. So that's actually a huge proportion, I would say. Those with existing illnesses, particularly, more so with the age, those in the geriatric population, if they have underlying diabetes, for instance, so there'll be fluctuations in the sugar readings, and they may even come in with diabetic emergency, and this can increase the fatality rate.
As vaccination is key to preventing the spread of influenza, Nordiana urges the elderly to get their shots.
We should really raise awareness in the public, not just pertaining to the elderly persons, because number one, if you protect the elderly, you actually protect the rest of the community too. You must remember now we're already hitting the aging population. That includes our country. We've got a high number of those above 65 years of age. So if you protect the elderly, it includes protecting the pediatric population as well. So you want to curb the illness, you want to curb the spread of the illness, because the way it spreads is as contagious as how COVID is. So you protect the elderly, you also protect everyone else. So raise awareness on the true burden of flu, because flu itself, if you go into complications, you end up being hospitalized and obviously death.
On to the international front, Kwasi Kwarteng has resigned as Britain's finance minister after Prime Minister Liz Truss asked him to stand aside just 6 weeks into the job. He made the announcement via Twitter, where he posted a copy of his resignation letter to Truss. His sacking comes after the Truss administration announced a disastrous mini-budget that caused market turmoil. Kwarteng's departure comes after he returned early from the International Monetary Fund meeting in the US to discuss further U-turns in the budget, after a move to cut the 45% top rate income tax of high earners failed to calm the economic situation. Kwarteng becomes Britain's shortest-serving Chancellor since 1970. There is no word yet on who will replace him. British government bonds rallied further on Friday, adding to their partial recovery since Truss's government started looking for ways to balance the books after her controversial unfunded tax cuts triggered a bailout of pension funds and sent mortgage rates soaring. Meanwhile, North Korea fired a short-range ballistic missile towards its eastern waters earlier today, the latest in a series of launches by the nuclear-armed country. It also flew about 10 military aircraft near the border, prompting the South to scramble its own fighter jets.
According to South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff, the North fired 170 rounds of artillery into sea buffer zones off its east and west coast in the early hours of the morning. While none of the North Korean artillery shells fell inside the South's territorial waters, the firings are seen as violation of the 2018 agreement, which created buffer zones along land and sea boundaries, as well as no-fly zones to prevent clashes. In a statement, North Korea's military said it was taking strong military countermeasures over the South's artillery fire on Thursday, which Seoul has described as a regular exercise. Seoul has also imposed its first unilateral sanctions against Pyongyang in nearly 5 years, blacklisting 15 North Korean individuals and 16 institutions involved in missile development.
Over in Australia, thousands of people in 3 states were asked to evacuate their homes after 2 days of non-stop rains which triggered flash flooding. Large parts of Victoria State, southern New South Wales and the northern regions of Tasmania were pounded by more than a month's worth of rain since late Wednesday. So far, 1 person has died and another missing as the disaster unfolds.
Victoria, Australia's second most populous state, has been worst hit this week, with floods inundating hundreds of homes. The floods also forced school closures and cut power to 3,000 houses and businesses. More rain is forecast in the coming weeks, placing strain on already swollen rivers. Experts say recent flooding in Australia has been worsened by climate change and a La Niña weather phenomenon. In Australia, a La Niña increases the likelihood of rain, cyclones and cooler daytime temperatures. Widespread flooding across Australia has killed more than 20 people this year.
On Consider This tonight, Melissa Idris speaks to Tan Sri Azhar Azizan Harun, Speaker of Dewan Rakyat, about the role of an unbiased speaker and the reasons behind some of his rulings in the House, from block debates to rejected motions. That's after AWANI Tonight. That is all we have for you on AWANI Tonight. I'm Fana Sheh. Thank you for watching.